A lot went wrong for Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes this season, but I think there are three things that stand out among the rest as the reasons for why they struggled so much.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I'm your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCULTURE, $20 off your first purchase. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network in the business. So make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so you don't miss out on a moment of our coverage. And thank you for making me your first listen of the day. We're going to be talking about a handful of different things, and I think all of them are very fascinating because we have to talk about the three biggest mistakes that Colorado really made this year that led to their downfall, from going from 9-4 a year ago and making a bowl game to being ranked as one of the worst teams in college football, both in rankings and statistical categories. So there's that. We're going to talk about the guys that Colorado cannot afford to lose. So we're going to talk about the Julian Lewises of the world and why they really need to go all in on keeping their star players in Boulder. And then we're going to talk a little hoops because the Buffs, they've made some history, some program history at least. So we're going to discuss all of that. But let's talk the three biggest mistakes that Colorado made. So when a team goes from 9-4 to 3-9, basically when you flip your record, if you will, it's not great, right? Colorado is in a position now where they haven't made it to back-to-back bowl games since 2004, 2005. They are in a position where they haven't won 9 or more games in consecutive seasons since 2001 and 2002. So this program as a whole has struggled to sustain success, and in years past, a bunch of different reasons. But this year, I think there was a lot of things that went wrong, but there's three that really stood out to me among the rest of them. So we're going to start with Kaidon Salter. I just put on my notes here the Kaidon Salter situation. I don't think Colorado did a good enough job researching Kaidon Salter as a player. I don't think they did a good enough job researching Kaidon Salter as a member of the team, right? You bring him in as a fifth-year senior. You expect him to sort of be a leader. You expect him to be a guy that you could count on to turn your team around. And he showed us countless times throughout the year, whether it was when he got benched and he said he couldn't lead because he was benched, or when he constantly was pointing fingers at other guys during the game, or that one video on Well Off Media, and I'm sure there were more videos, where Coach Prime is telling him he made the wrong read or something was wrong, and Kaidon Salter, without even knowing what play it was he was talking about, because he goes, "What play?" And before Coach Prime could answer, he goes, "They called the wrong play." Like, there's just so many things where I think when you go all in on a quarterback like Colorado did with Kaidon Salter, I don't know how much they paid him, but I know he wasn't a cheap acquisition, and I know that they heavily invested in him in order to start him over five-star quarterback Julian Lewis. You're expecting that he's going to come in and do all the right things, both on and off the field, and that wasn't the case. Now, I think part of that is Colorado's fault. I think Kaidon Salter wasn't a fit for the offense that they ran. I don't think they really modified the offense at all. To me, it still looked pro style, not really leaning on the RPO stuff. And even when they did RPO stuff, it was stupid bubble screens that everyone could read from a mile away. So, like, they just did not find an offense that was complimentary of Kaidon Salter. And I think that was a huge issue with Pat Shurmur. And it's probably one of the many reasons that he is no longer going to be calling plays for Colorado and may or may not be looking for a job in a few weeks. So we'll see there. In terms of the Kaidon Salter situation, was a double-edged sword because he wasn't a fit. He was a flop for the Buffs. But at the same time, Deion Sanders and company did not do anything in their power to set him up to succeed, right? It started week 1. They got cold feet, right? They lose to Georgia Tech, and Deion Sanders all of a sudden decides, you know what's really going to help us figure out our quarterback is playing all three quarterbacks against a group of 5 team who just made the jump from the FCS. Like, right, playing 3 quarterbacks against Delaware to sort of figure out who's the best quarterback wasn't really necessary. It didn't really give us any answers. In fact, I think that was one of the moments that really derailed Colorado's season in a way, because Caden Salter didn't play great against Georgia Tech, and I would say he played all right. That being said, it's not like he played terrible. He showed some flashes. He also showed some things like of that would continue to plague him throughout the year, making the wrong reads, holding on to the ball for too long, and stuff like that. But going up against Delaware would have given him, if he got him a full game of action, would have given him a lot more confidence. Because I imagine I mean, in the 2 drives that he led, he led him to, I think it was touchdowns. He at least led him to scoring drives. And all of a sudden you put in Ryan Staub and then you throw in Julian Lewis for no reason. And you just sort of make things confusing, because from that point on, Ryan Staub looked better against Delaware. And it's like, does that really mean anything? No. But you were kind of leaving the quarterback situation open-ended. So you had to make the change, because it's like, oh, well, we always talk about playing the best guy. And in that game, the best guy was Ryan Staub. So they had to switch him then based on the rules that they set for themselves. And then all of a sudden, Ryan Staub lays an egg against Houston. So you go back to Caden Salter, who at that point made it clear that his confidence was shot, right? He goes, after the Wyoming game, he's like, it's been hard for me because I got benched, and like I didn't know like if I was the guy, and it's hard for me to lead, and like he just wasn't confident. He didn't have that alpha mentality, and like it sucked because you sort of flip flop things so much, and you pulled him, you put him back in, and you're like, you're not our guy, you are a guy. I think the Caden Salter experiment from the top bottom was just an utter disaster. It's just one of those things that it's when you go into the transfer portal and you try to build your roster through the transfer portal, you run the risk of investing on the wrong people. And I would say Caden Salter was the wrong investment. And that leads me to my next point. There were a lot of wrong investments. You look at Colorado's transfer portal class, and I'm sure they're going to see quite a few departures. I mean, they have a lot of seniors and grad students anyway, but I'm looking at this list of guys who I thought would be better, and they just didn't do much, right? These are some notable guys who I was expecting a lot more from, and we just didn't see much. Like Hakeem Williams, I think showed some potential, but was not the former 5-star that I thought he'd be. Deion Parks struggled tremendously. Martavius French and Reggie Hughes at linebacker were both unplayable by the end of the season. You look at a guy like Jaheim Otis, who I imagine Colorado had to fork over quite a few bucks to get him to Boulder. And he was, quite frankly, outside of Caden Salter, one of the most underwhelming transfers in college football. He was sort of pitched to us as a guy like, yeah, all-American potential. Like, he's got the size, he's got the skills, he just doesn't have the desire. And I think this year's transfer portal class has really taught me a lesson, just in terms of how I'm going to evaluate transfers moving forward. Is I'm going to, like, and this is weird, and I don't know why it took this to happen, but it's like I'm going to go off of what their history tells us. Like, if there's guys who have behavioral issues, or there's guys who there's heart questions, or they just sort of at their previous stops were benched or struggled to stay in the rotation, what makes you think that it's going to work out at Colorado? Now, I'm not saying everyone's going to be like that, but I mean, it's a good sort of model to go off of. But yeah, I just look at this class. They brought in a total of 33 guys, and like Cooper Lovelace didn't do much. Simeon Price got injured, nothing he could do. Sean Myers made an impact, but towards the end of the season, I don't even know if Coach Prime was really that high on him based on how he responded to Brian Howell's question a few weeks ago. Walker Anderson, didn't see much of him. Tyrekus Davis, I thought would be a starting corner for them, and he played 1 or 2 games and then was yanked. Andre Roy was unplayable. Jack Costero was injured. Noah King didn't play. Kalen Taylor got injured. I like what I saw from him when he was healthy, but he was injured. Larry Johnson was good. John Slaughter was a good guy, a good player. I think he's one of the key guys that they need to build around moving forward on that defense. Terrence Love left the program. Deion Parks struggled. Sincere Brown was a flash in the pan. Xavier Hill was solid. Monotamini ended up playing defensive line at the end of the year. Zylan Chrysler did pretty well. Tavion Coleman didn't do much. Martavius French, disaster. Zarian McGill was probably one of, if not the best, portal player in this class. Kylan Salter didn't do anything. Tafik Byard right up there with Zarian McGill. Akioji, same thing, didn't do much. Joseph Williams was good, but off the field stuff, whether it was being late and you just disciplinary stuff with him from what I was told. Salter, the quarterback didn't do much. Makari Vickers was all right. Gabriel Lightfoot was injured. Reggie Hughes was bad. Buck Buchanan they didn't use. Zach Atkins they didn't use. Like this, they brought in 33 guys, and I would say about 5 to 6 of them were guys that were actually useful. And that's just a miss on evaluations. I know Deion Sanders plans to be more involved this offseason. What that means, I don't know. But basically, Colorado is in a situation when it comes to their staff that they can't trust their evaluators to find the right players, and they can't trust the current coaching staff as of recording this to develop those guys. So you're basically taking home run swings on everybody, and you're going all or nothing, and you're just hoping that these guys are finished products coming from other schools, because when they get to Boulder, they're not being developed. So that's a tough situation to be on when you're counting on the portal to build your roster up, because if you miss like Colorado did this year on majority of your transfers, you end up going 3-9 and sort of having to clean house on the coaching staff. Up next, and this is the final thing that I think went wrong, and was a mistake for Colorado, is their culture problem. It started with the guys they brought in from the portal. Those guys, we've heard them called mercenaries. I've called them, some of them, clout chasers. Like, they just did not care about building a culture in Colorado. And it's this thing about the transfer portal right now, where everyone's like, you can bring in transfers, like you can win with the transfer portal. Look at Indiana, you can look at Texas Tech, look at Vanderbilt, and it's like, you're right. Programs with strong cultures can afford to bring guys in and can afford to sort of pick and choose and find success through the portal, because they have such a culture that you don't go to those schools unless you know you're a fit. Whereas Colorado, I think they are not really looking into who they're bringing in. And when you know what hits the fan, you have a former player from a year ago saying that you're lazy, or you have Coach Prime calling you out for quitting. Like, you shouldn't be quitting or being called lazy after you upset a top 25 team. But that's exactly where Colorado was. And I mean, this entire season was just an instance of bad culture, because programs who have strong cultures, culture alone can win you one or two games, right? Like, a strong culture could have won Colorado that Georgia Tech game. A strong culture could have helped Colorado upset BYU, right? You were up a couple scores. A strong culture doesn't let you sort of go off a bye week and then go into a game against Utah and get beat by 55 points or whatever it was. Like, Colorado had no sense of culture. It starts with the top, and I think Deion Sanders has said time and time again he doesn't care about culture or identity. And I think if he wants to succeed at Colorado, he has to change that narrative of how he views building a team, because clearly, outside of having two generational college football players on your team, it's hard to just win games when no one really has the same idea or the same direction. So those are the three things that I think went wrong for the Buffs. You guys comment below. Let me know what you think went wrong for Colorado, and we could compare and contrast in the comments section. When we come back, we're going to talk about the 4 or 5 guys that I think Colorado can absolutely not afford to lose this offseason. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at, Omaha Steaks. The holidays, they always feel a little easier when you already know the perfect gift, and Omaha Steaks makes it almost too simple. Whether you're treating yourself this season or spending something memorable on family or friends, Omaha Steaks delivers handcrafted perfection right to their door. And this week is the best time to jump in, because there's cyber sales here, and the deals are huge. The quality is exactly what you hope for: incredibly tender steaks, rich flavor, and meals that make hosting or weeknight cooking easier. Save big on unforgettable gifts with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off select favorites during their cyber sale, and an additional $35 off using promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code COLLEGE. Terms apply. See site for details. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. I appreciate all of you for tuning in, making me your first listener of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Oh, geez. Wow. Okay. Sorry. I just got an update on the BYU thing, and I was a little scared for the Cougars over there. Kalani Sitake is staying in Provo. Penn State was pushing hard for him. But we're here to talk about the guys that, speaking of guys you don't want to lose, we're going to talk about the guys that Colorado can't afford to lose. Also, I forgot to mention this during my last segment, culture problems. When you have certain guys who are projected first-round picks at a certain position where you had a first-round pick last year, holding out for money and missing the last few games, possibly to protect his own stock and stuff. Culture problem, right? And that same guy, couple of them, honestly. So one of those guys, his people approached me earlier in the offseason, was trying to get him on the show for a lot of money every week. And it doesn't shock me that Colorado is being held hostage by him as well and in a backfiring. So you have a culture problem when you can't get your best players to want to buy in. Simple as that. So let's talk about the guys you want to be there. Starting with Jordan Seaton. I think Jordan Seaton is he's solidified as a first or second round, maybe third round at worst offensive tackle. I think he has proven that he can pass protect really well. I think he's one of the better offensive linemen in college football. The problem is there's two things that are really going to hurt Colorado and keeping him on campus. Their lack of success, quite frankly. Other programs like Ohio State, who was in it until the very end, other programs like a Texas or a Alabama or whoever else it is, like they're going to come knocking for him. He went to school at IMG, so maybe a school like Florida State or Miami comes knocking for him. They're going to offer him a lot of money, and they're going to be like, hey, Colorado can't afford you. We can. We're going to contend. Come on down. Money is the other thing. So you got sort of contention for championships or whatever, and I don't know if Colorado's there right now. Right now, as currently constructed, Colorado is not anywhere near contending for a championship, let alone a Big 12 title. So people are going to be like, hey, your draft stock has taken a hit. We could pay you more. You're going to win games here. I think that's appealing. And we'll see if Jordan Seaton, which he says all the right things, like when he's on those Instagram lives and people are telling him to transfer. But when that portal opens on January 2nd, I will be interested to see if Jordan Seaton's name is in it. Next guy, you got to go with Omarion Miller. I think Omarion Miller is a guy that Colorado could either lose to the transfer portal or the NFL draft. I don't think he's NFL ready at this moment. I think he has NFL talent, but I think his problem is he's very hot and cold when it comes to the small things. And that's the kind of stuff that will get you the Keon Coleman treatment, if you will, right? Holding penalties, false start penalties, not good. He's terrible at blocking. Like Omarion Miller is a great one-on-one receiver. If you throw it up to him, 50-50 balls turn into 70-30 balls, really, or 80-20. That being said, he doesn't do the other aspects of the job all the time to the best of his ability. Also, with that being said, that doesn't mean other programs won't notice him and be like, hey, we think we could get you the Blitnikoff, or we think we can, like, say Ohio State, they're not going to lose Jeremiah Brown, but like say they're like, hey, we want to pair you up with Jeremiah Brown. You're going to play with one of the best quarterbacks in the country, Heisman candidate. Like, you don't think Ohio State's going to come knocking for him, or a program like Miami who wants more weapons for whoever's at quarterback? Like, they're going to come knocking. Their program like LSU with Lane Kiffin, Omarion Miller is a Louisiana guy. And maybe Lane Kiffin taps in and says, hey, I want to win a title. Like, we're going to be really good. And I just led Ole Miss to their best record in program history. Like, come our way. So Omarion Miller, freak athlete, great receiver, has to do a little bit of everything else to be a complete player, but he's a guy that Colorado shouldn't want to lose. Julian Lewis is an obvious one. He's the future of the program. I think all your chips are in his basket at this moment. I think you sort of have to understand, like, this program's success for the next couple of years are heavily dependent on how good Julian Lewis is. And if he starts to get wandering eyes, or other programs get in his ear and be like, hey, like, Colorado's offense is what show, like, why would you want to be there? And like, Julian Lewis is a guy that Colorado could end up losing. And if they do lose him, I don't think he's going to go anywhere, because he's made it very clear that he likes Colorado and he wants to turn things around. But if they were to lose him, it would be catastrophic, because I imagine Ryan Staub's going to leave. You're going to lose Caden Salter. You're going to find yourself with no scholarship quarterbacks on the roster, and then you have to go back in the portal and get a quarterback. And I mean, it's not easy, especially with how much they cost. So Julian Lewis is my other guy. And the last two are transfers, Tafik Bayard and John Slaughter. I liked both. I liked what I saw from both. Tafik Bayard is the absolute embodiment of what every program should be built on, which is guys that will literally break bones and be in pain and play for you. Like, his hand was broken this past week and he still played. Like, Tafik Bayard is a dog, and he's a guy that cares about winning games, about playing, and he's a culture-changing kind of player. And I hope that Colorado is able to keep him around. Otherwise, You're going to lose another culture setting guy on defense, and I don't think they could really afford to do that. So those are the guys that I don't think Colorado can afford to lose. You guys let me know who you think the Buffs really need to prioritize this offseason. So that way, I mean, it's going to be a big offseason. And we all know that. But who do you think is like, hey, we have to lock that guy down? Absolutely, no questions asked. So let me know what you guys think. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to dive into some hoops discussions after on the other side. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Game Time. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994. I wasn't even born then. And with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why the Game Time app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to the snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when your great seat opens, and buy tickets the moment it hits the app. Puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup more realistic instead of impossible. Prices include fees up front, which I love. No last second surprise at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets in every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Download the app, make an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go download Game Time. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. I appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So make sure to like, subscribe, follow. Let's talk basketball. I know we're not much of a hoops show on here, but the Buffs are making waves out there. With Tad Boyle on the hot seat, he comes out as strong as ever. Your Colorado Buffaloes, as shared by the social media team, are 8-0 for the first time since 1949, 1950. That's literally insane. For reference, let's pull up how they did back then, because obviously I don't even know if most of you guys were alive. I know my fan base is seasoned, if you will. Let's see my viewership, my listenership. Let's see how the Buffs did in the 49-50 season. I mean, had to be a great year, I would hope, unless it's one of those years where they start off really strong and then don't do much. Oh, they finished 14-8. That's tough. Frosty Cox was their coach. Tough, honestly. But they look good right now. And I think there's a lot to be excited about if you're a Colorado fan. I think they have a pretty deep team, honestly. It reminds me of the tournament team. It would be that 2 years ago now with Big Eddie, Tristan da Silva, all those guys. Like they had a deep team, but you beat a Cal Baptist team 78-70, and Cal Baptist was undefeated at the time and really good team. But you're led by freshman Isaiah Johnson, who, I mean, I'm pretty sure that's Dwayne Wade's nephew, if I'm not mistaken. 17 points, 4 of 7 shooting, 3 rebounds, 3 assists off the bench. Big man, Big Ot Doc, 5 points, 1 of 7 shooting, and didn't have his best offensive game, but overall 8 rebounds, 3 assists. Like, he still makes an impact. And then you got Sebastian Ramkic with 12 points, made 2 threes, grabbed 5 boards. Like, this Colorado team, they were able to win really with defense and taking advantage of Isaiah Johnson's hot hand. Like, they held Cal Baptist to 2 of 13 from 3, and they shot 25 of 62 from the field. So not a really strong sort of showing for Cal Baptist, I would say. But, I mean, this Colorado team, I think they're looking like one of the better teams in the Big 12 right now. We'll see how long they could sustain it. They play Colorado State on Saturday, which will be a really nice test. And then they have UTSA, which is a game they should win. Portland State, another winnable game. And then Stanford on December 20th in the Hall of Fame series. That one's going to be a good game because Stanford is also looking really good this year. So that'll be a good game. But right now, Colorado is one of just 4 teams in the Big 12 that is undefeated. So we'll see if they can keep it up. But Tad Boyle, hats off to you. Like, keep it up, my man. You guys, let me know what you think about the Buffs' strong start to the basketball season, and I will make sure to get a Colorado basketball insider on the show so we can talk even more hoops. I appreciate all you guys for tuning in every single day. This has been Locked On Buffs.